Hello and welcome to Inside Judicial Watch. I'm your host, Bruce Schlesman. With me today we have Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton here to talk about the recent Clinton depositions and everything else ongoing at Judicial Watch. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey Bruce, how are you?
So we just got into court with these Clinton depositions, highly anticipated Clinton depositions. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it if you can?
Well, we're off to the races. Our attorneys have begun questioning email witnesses as a result of a federal court order. The federal court wanted to know, in this case it was U.S. District Court Judge Royce Lamberth, whether Hillary Clinton's email system was set up to evade FOIA, whether or not there was an effort to hoodwink the court, to shut the case down so they didn't have to tell him and Judicial Watch about the emails. And then thirdly, are there other emails that can be found and produced under the law? And this is a Benghazi case. It's a Benghazi Freedom of Information Act case. So the court also wants to know, I wonder if the Benghazi scandal was one of the reasons about them not wanting to tell us about these emails. Was there something there they were concerned about or they didn't even want to look for because they were worried about the blowback on Benghazi? So as a result, we have 11 witnesses we're able to question in person. We've scheduled, I think, 10 of those. Our attorneys already took the first testimony last week. It was of Justin Cooper, who is a former Clinton Foundation employee who helped set up the system. And so there are a series of other testimonies that we'll be able to take, and other witnesses that have to come in under oath. And just today, because there are other witnesses that we're able to question in writing under oath, so they have to respond to us in writing, and that includes Susan Rice, who is the former UN ambassador under President Obama, who went out and lied repeatedly on Benghazi, Ben Rhodes, the White House official who wrote the fake talking points about Benghazi, blaming it on a video as opposed to the truth was that it was a terrorist attack, and Bill Priestep, who is a former FBI official, senior FBI official, who oversaw the Clinton email investigation. The interesting thing is that Ben Rhodes is nowhere to be found. He's evading our efforts to comply with the court direction to question him under oath in writing. So we're seeking court permission. Hey, he doesn't want to answer our requests, and he doesn't want to follow your court order as to whether or not, in terms of providing answers under oath in writing, we're going to have to question him in person. So already we're facing objections and obstruction from the Clinton email witnesses. And outrageously, the Justice Department is telling the court that they don't think that we should be able to depose Ben Rhodes. So the Justice Department is still protecting Hillary Clinton in many ways. And in fact, they just filed a brief saying that there should be no video depositions released. They should be put under seal of the government employees who we're going to be questioning. So again, it's Judicial Watch that's doing all this work despite the objections of the State Department and the Justice Department. And it's one thing to have them protect Clinton during the Obama administration. We now know, based on the Page and Strzok testimony that was released, that was, well, I shouldn't say we now know. It's been further confirmed in testimony that email investigation was a sham and corrupt. But now the Justice Department and the FBI, and the State Department are still protecting Hillary Clinton. So everything's a fight to get the truth out about the Clinton email scandal. But I'm pleased that it's Judicial Watch that's doing the fighting still, because Congress has given up, and as I say, Justice Department's fighting us.
So why is the Justice Department fighting us after so long? It's Trump's administration. These are his people. So why, or supposedly, so why are they still digging in to protect someone who's been gone and evading answers on this email scandal after so long?
Well, because the deep state is partisan. It's out to get President Trump. And to initiate any investigation into Hillary Clinton, even to allow Judicial Watch to ask questions related to Hillary Clinton's conduct, gets in the way of their goal of overthrowing the president. And that's what I think is going on. The Justice Department and the State Department are also implicated in this scandal. They helped Hillary Clinton cover it up. As the court mentioned, he was concerned about the Justice Department prevarications to him, maybe misleading him. So the Justice Department and the State Department are also protecting themselves institutionally. And remember, it's not Hillary Clinton who just committed the misconduct. There were State Department officials, maybe Justice Department officials who covered up the emails, all sorts of misconduct that surround the Clinton email issue. And that's why the deep state is protecting Hillary Clinton, because in many ways it's protecting itself.
So it's trying to cover its own malfeasance and wrongdoing and implication in the scandal.
Yeah, you know, I guess that's all speculation, but it's based on evidence that there was malfeasance in the scandal by other officials, but you know, other officials beyond Hillary Clinton. We know that at the State Department, we know that at the Justice Department and the FBI. But in the end, it's all just obstruction. And whatever the reason, it's obstruction. And it's obstruction of justice, it's obstruction of the court processes, and it's little old Judicial Watch in there just battling day in and day out. We had 3 attorneys go up to New York to question Justin Cooper. We have these other witnesses testifying. We have documents coming in. So the Clinton email scandal is far, far from over.
So with this depositions and some of these proceedings have started, has there any been information from the depositions so far that you can share with us, or is that still to be determined?
Well, we just have the one witness, you know, and the reason we questioned him, or wanted to question him, because obviously he set up the system, but his testimony seemed to contradict testimony that, his testimony that had been given elsewhere. I think he had testified to Congress, maybe to the special counsel, or the, not the special counsel, but the FBI. He had set up the system in concert with Huma Abedin, Hillary Clinton's one of her top aides. Now, Abedin testified to Judicial Watch attorneys back in 2016, and she said, well, I wasn't involved. I didn't know about the server till after the fact. So we've got testimony that contradicts other testimony, and that's why we questioned Mr. Cooper. But his deposition, the video, at least portion of it's under seal, or we're still battling as to whether that material is going to be made public in its entirety.
Okay.
But again, it's the Justice Department and the State Department working in concert with the Clinton email witnesses to try to thwart transparency of this process.
So moving forward to the deep state scandal and kind of Bruce Orr with the DOJ and Peter Strzok with the FBI and all of their cover-ups there and the Fusion GPS, we've obviously done a lot recently. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we're still fighting in court for the records. You know, Bruce Orr's communications with Christopher Steele, all those details about the documents showing the communications, 60-plus communications between the Justice Department and Christopher Steele, the Clinton agent, the foreign spy working for Fusion GPS, came out because of Judicial Watch's litigation. We're fighting for Strzok information about his removal from the Mueller operation. After it was found out he was an anti-Trumper activist and hated President Trump. Mr. Mueller obviously thought better of having him be there, but of course he didn't ask him, according to Strzok, well, did you do anything inappropriate? Now, Strzok says he didn't, but Mueller wasn't even interested in figuring that out. So we want to know about the details of his removal, because that removal was hidden from the American people for 4 months by Mueller and the Justice Department. So we sued for the records, and the Justice Department came back to us and said, well, we looked here, but we didn't find anywhere. And looking here was just looking in one place, which was Strzok's email account. And they found, I think, 15 or so pages of records. And the judge says, well, hold on a second, you didn't look anywhere else? And so the judge said, you go back to the drawing board and do a real search. So the FBI was slapped back by a federal court judge last week as they tried to cover up through a cramped and crimped and dishonest search of records of Peter Strzok. This is, you know, people think all this went on during the Obama administration. No, the cover-up is continuing by the deep state into the Trump administration, and the FBI and the DOJ is covering up the misconduct of, and they don't want the full truth to come out about the misconduct of their own FBI and DOJ officials. And thankfully, the federal courts are not going to, you know, at least there's one federal court judge who says, you know, come on, you're not fooling me.
So there's obviously a lot of records that are still being kept quiet that we've been trying to get through the court. Is there a way that we can get these faster, a way this process can be, more and more stuff can be brought to light in kind of a speedy fashion?
Well, that's up to the agencies. I mean, the court can
agencies.
speed things along, but the agencies have taken the stonewall, slow as molasses approach. And I know the process is slower than we like, but it's better than what's going on in Congress, which is nothing, and the Justice Department would not release anything but for Judicial Watch. It's our litigation. For instance, we sued for communications of Andrew Weissman, the #2 deputy at the Mueller operation, anti-Trumper. We found out he sent an email to Sally Yates, the Obama holdover, praising her lawless effort to thwart the president's travel ban order, for which she was rightly fired, and he went to Hillary Clinton's election night party. He's #2 at the Mueller operation. And he's a controversial figure otherwise because of his aggressive bulldog tactics as a prosecutor. So we wanted his communications about Donald Trump. And guess what? It was a stonewall and a stonewall, but they're due to us in the next 2 weeks. So the materials are coming out, and Andrew Weissman, coincidentally, is planning to leave the Mueller special counsel operation. I don't know if it has anything to do with the fact all these emails are going to be coming out about what he was saying about President Trump, but we'll see.
We're about to find out.
Yeah.
So we've been, to switch topics, to election integrity. We obviously been doing a lot with that with California and the recent lawsuits and some major victories out there. And we're turning our attention to ballot harvesting. Do you want to talk a little bit about what's going on with the ballot harvesting scandal in California?
Well, California has a law like no other state, which is often true for California, but that allows third parties with virtually no check to collect ballots of someone else and then supposedly deliver them. Anyone could collect them. 12-year-old can collect them, an illegal alien can collect them, anyone can collect the ballots, and there's virtually no check on making sure that they're handled appropriately. There could be all sorts of intimidation associated with the collection of the ballots. I mean, the idea that you would have third parties collect ballots and then rely on them and their honesty and integrity without any check to get those ballots delivered and counted as they should be is so obviously flawed, and it's a recipe for for voter fraud. So Judicial Watch has initiated a comprehensive investigation into ballot harvesting processes in California to see if there is fraud, to see if there is voter intimidation or lost votes or fraud, and it's again up to Judicial Watch. Where is the Justice Department? I don't know. California, obviously, the leftists there have passed this law, so they're not going to look askance at it. So Judicial Watch, again, is doing the heavy lifting on this, and and if you're a California voter and you've had a negative run-in with a ballot harvester, we want to know about it because we want to figure out what the truth is, because, as we say, it's a recipe for voter fraud. And this is on top of our recent victory in California, where California is now going to take steps, specifically LA County, to remove up to 1.5, I think 6 million names from the rolls. And that process has already begun. They sent out well over 1 million, I think 1.3, 1.4 million cards to inactive voters on the rolls in LA County. And if they don't respond to those cards, those inactive voters, these are people who have likely moved away or dead, frankly, the process for removal will begin. It won't begin for several years, but it took 20 years to get these lists as messy as they are. But as a result of Judicial Watch's efforts in California, they're going to have cleaner voter rolls over the next few elections. It's important. Election integrity is a cutting-edge issue. We need voter ID. We need citizenship verification. This ballot harvesting is a menace to election integrity. And obviously the rolls need to be clean as well. And Judicial Watch is on the front lines in all those battles.
So we mentioned Mueller and his probe and investigation and all of the scandals and cover-ups going on there. There's been a report that's supposed to come out and it hasn't yet. Do you want to speak a little bit about what Judicial Watch is doing with the Mueller investigation, trying to find out what is going on?
Well, I don't know if there's a report coming out. You know,
Yeah.
we've been saying it's going to be, they've been telling us it's going to end. I don't know if it's going to end.
Yeah.
Weissman leaving may be an indication it's going to end, but I don't know. Who knows? But I don't believe there ought to be a report. I don't think the Justice Department should be writing another dossier on President Trump. And to me, it's a constitutional abomination that the Justice Department is investigating the president. The president runs the Justice Department. He's investigating himself. Yeah. It's silly. He's investigating himself for his own conduct as president. It doesn't make any sense. And so it's that constitutional problem, I think, that they've never really been able to convincingly overcome. And so that's why I think any idea of a report, another dossier targeting President Trump, would be inappropriate. I mean, the news is out this week that John McCain's associates were out there pushing the dossier. I mean, there were dossiers targeting Trump from all quarters, from the Clinton campaign, Clinton cutouts at the State Department. McCain was trying to feed the dossier, not only to the media, but to the FBI and the Justice Department. You know, and of course the dossier was a fake, it was a fraud, and everyone knew it at the time, but they did it anyway. So why would we let the Justice Department start smearing our president? That's not what the Justice Department is supposed to be doing. And you know, that's funny, because the Justice Department this week was in federal court arguing that Maryland can't sue President Trump on the emoluments clause because it would interfere with his presidency, and they don't have the right to harass the president like that. But it seems to me like the Justice Department is taking the position that they have the right to harass the president. And the Mueller operation is presidential harassment and needs to be shut down. And when you see what Page was doing, what Strzok was doing, all of that is evidence of a crime, and President Trump is the crime victim. And the Mueller operation is a continuation of this assault on President Trump. And if I were AG Barr, I'd say, you know what, I'm taking back control of the Justice Department from Mr. Mueller. We're freezing that operation. I'm going to figure out what went on and met out justice, but we're stopping this harassment. And you know, I know Judicial Watch is one of the few people in town who are willing to say it so bluntly, other than, frankly, the president. But this is a serious constitutional crisis. It's an assault on our republic. They're seeking to overthrow the president. And I think the Justice Department has got to stop this lawlessness.
So where does Judicial Watch go from here?
Well, we're asking for all the documents. We're trying to get the Strzok documents. We're trying to get the Page documents. We're asking about the leaks. We are asking about Mueller's operation. As I said, we've got these Weissman documents that supposedly are going to come to us. We'll see if they withhold anything or black anything out. But we have, I think, Bruce, at this point, probably nearly 40 lawsuits on the deep state efforts to overthrow President Trump. Yeah. There's no one else doing as much as Judicial Watch is doing to expose the kind of the depth of the corruption going on in terms of the illicit targeting of then candidate Trump and now President Trump. And it's a shame that we're facing obstruction from the Justice Department, the State Department, you name the deep state agency. They're battling us in court for basic information on this attack on our right to govern ourselves.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
This has been very enlightening, and thank you for filling us in on everything that's going on. It's just outstanding what we've done so far, and just kind of how deep this goes.
It is incredible. I mean, it's not to toot, you know, we're tooting our own horn, but it is incredible. Yeah. I mean, it's you know, the scope of the work is incredible. What's outrageous is that Judicial Watch is virtually doing it alone. But it's remarkable that we're able to do what we're able to do, and it's a great country that allows us to do it, because
absolutely,
not every country has laws that allow us to hold the government accountable like we do. And we're going to exercise this precious, precious right as carefully and as often as we can.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on Inside Judicial Watch. And if you liked us and liked this episode, please go like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Please be sure to support our work if you want to help us in this fight against government corruption, and donate on our webpage. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode.